All right, going to unit modules. We just submitted our creature concepts, Unit 5. You're reminded to finish Unit 5, you also want to put your comments for your answers for question of the day number 2 about copyright and using other people's pixels. But now we go to our first proving ground. Now, what are our proving grounds about? Why are they called proving grounds? Because that's not the term I would have chosen. Well, if you go to the sidebar of your class, you'll see something that says badges. Badges are a type of certification that's different than credit, different than college credit. And at the end of the semester, that badges link is going to show you whether you've earned your creative problem solving badge or not. Your creative problem solving badge is not based on your grade in the class, and it's not based on your performance on questions of the day or engagement or assignments or exercises or your midterm or your final. It's based solely on 4 proving grounds. So the badge linked to this course is creative problem solving. To learn more about this, you can kind of click on the badge. And what you want to do is, if you look at modules, both here and in unit modules, is at the very end of the class, we'll look at if you've earned enough to earn your badge, right? But these are the skills that these proving grounds are meant to show. And what's important is you basically need to get 100% on all 4 of them in order to earn your badge. You could score 1.2 out of 1.5 points, but sometimes the rubric doesn't even make that possible because there's like 2 components, and if you don't get one of them, you're not going to get 1.2 points. But in general, our first proving ground is about being able to identify patterns, because before you can effectively problem solve in any situation, you need to understand what you have, right? Understand what is there, what you have to work with. So for proving ground 1, the problem we're going to solve is how to put our creature believably into a fantasy landscape. So if we go to the unit module, it will walk us through it. Proving grounds are like exercises. They can be completed, they can not be completed, they can be pass-fail, or they can be partially completed, right? And if you miss the deadline, you are encouraged to still go back and do them so you can earn your badge. Most of the proving grounds after this are going to be steps in assignments. So you don't want to do those late because you want to be able to get the assignment turned in. But this is what we're doing. I call it the Creaturescape project. For our first proving ground, you're going to, as best as you can, believably place your creature into your fantasy landscape. But teacher, what if I never finish my fantasy landscape? And I don't want to finish it, even though finishing it would mean I'd get a better grade because I submitted something. Or what if I never submitted anything for my fantasy landscape by the deadline, got a 0, and I don't want to have to just create one just for this 1.5 point proving ground? Well, then you're going to take your creature design and you're going to integrate it into a fantasy landscape that you download. Because this isn't about how well you design the landscape or how well you design the creature. It's about how well you problem solve putting the creature into the landscape. Does that make sense? What if you have a landscape but you don't have a creature? Well, same thing. You can take a creature that you find online that's large enough resolution, and your problem solving is going to be putting that creature believably into your landscape. So this is basic compositing, combining figurative content with the setting. But there's 2 other components. One, which relates to recognizing the information you have, is you're going to need to identify whatever you turn in, you need to identify what its physical dimensions are, what we call physical format. So this, and write it. So this one is 18 inches by 12.5 inches at 300 pixels per inch. So that's just writing the physical dimensions and the pixel resolution. And then you need to be able to identify whether that's good enough for standard print resolution or not. Standard print resolution would be minimum 300 pixels per inch at least 8 by 10. So is this at least 8 by 10 inches at 300 pixels per inch or higher? Yes, it is. So that's good for printing. So that meets another requirement of the Proving Ground rubric. And then the third thing is you're going to create a paragraph, a little narrative that helps you understand how your creature exists in this environment. And that's going to help you make decisions about lighting, about texture effects. So in this one, I gave a name to my creature. The woodland mist gremlin thrives in environments rich in moisture and rotting timber. It feasts on the decaying wood of ancient forests, converting hard-to-digest lignin into oxygen-rich flatulence. So it farts a lot, which is why you see all this steam around it, right? Amongst rampant deforestation, these creatures have become a disruptive and haunting presence to logging operations, camouflaging easily within the leafy undergrowth. This leads to the abandonment of sawmills and timber farms, whose buildings and equipment provide the creature's most common shelter. So this is really whatever kind of BS you want to come up with, right? But it's connecting your creature to that environment. And it's forcing you to think about, well, what does it eat? What does it breathe? How does it survive? What are its predators? That kind of thing. Here's another example. So this is a past student example. They had this kind of floating gaseous creature, and then they had this psychedelic mushroom landscape, right? And you're going to be changing your creature and changing your landscape to help them match a little bit better. Notice the cast shadow underneath to show that it's floating. So the first thing they had to identify once they fit their creature into their landscape is what is the physical dimensions. Theirs was 9 by 12 inches. But then also what their pixel resolution was. And their pixel resolution was 72 pixels per inch. So for this, you're either going to have 72 pixels per inch or you're going to have 300 pixels per inch. 72 pixels per inch is what you would use for screen resolution. But this is not big enough for printing. So if you've had resolution problems on your first 2 assignments, this is where you come to terms with that. And you understand the limitations of it before you can problem solve further. And so you have to label it. Either it's screen resolution or print resolution. And then they wrote, this creature is a free-floating scavenger of the sulfurous gases rich in the atmosphere of its low-gravity environment. So that's why it floats. It shelters underneath the canopy of the giant mushroom forests and expels a phosphorescent vapor as a byproduct that contributes to the rainbow-colored skies. So you can see it making this, what is it called? Phosphorescent vapor. Here are some other examples. Different kind of environments, different kind of creatures. Sometimes they're underwater. Sometimes they're integrated into the undergrowth. And you can see more examples here. So what do we need to do for next class? You need to read through the project, understand what's going to be asked of you. Understand the rubric. Each Proving Ground has a really defined rubric that you want to meet fully in order to earn that problem-solving badge. And they're not difficult. They're just specific, right? So you want to have each of those components. And then how can you be ready to work on this in next class? Well, it's really about improving your first 2 assignments. So if I go to my folder, the first thing I want to do, the absolute most essential thing, is to work on my creature to make any improvements I think are needed so I can get a clean cutout like this, a clean PNG. Because what we're going to do at the beginning of next class is take our fantasy landscape or a found landscape, open up the Photoshop of it, and then drag the PNG of our creature from assignment 2, which is nicely cut out, just like what you posted to Canvas, right? And we're just going to plop it right in our landscape. And then we can decide where to put it. Should it go in the foreground? Should it go in the middle ground? Should it go in the background? Amongst the clouds, right? How big should it be? Here is the problem you need to solve. All of us can put a sticker into a landscape, but you want your creature to take up 25% or more of your overall creaturescape. So you have to find a place where it makes sense for your creature to go. And then you're going to position it. And then we're going to light it, color it, play with something called puppet warp, and pose it. So if I made my creature to stand on top of this little muffin tower, right? That would not meet the requirements asked for in the assignment because that's only taking up about 10% of the full image. But then what could I do? Well, if I really liked that, I could decide, well, I'm going to crop it down so that my creaturescape looks more like this. And now my creature is taking up 25% of it. And then I could do little things to make it match, which we will, and we're going to learn about texture overlays. But at the end of the day, I would need to check my image size, and I would have to see, okay, it's 5 by 7 inches at 350 pixels per inch. So if I uncheck resample, so I don't change any of the pixels, because we don't want to do that, at 300 pixels per inch, it's only 5 by 8 inches. And that's not 8 by 10 or bigger. So that's not big enough for print resolution. So then I change it to 72 pixels per inch, which is screen resolution. And so what I would actually say for this one, if this were my finished project, is that it's basically 25 inches by 35.5 inches at 72 pixels per inch. And that is standard screen resolution. And you get credit either way. But it's knowing what you have to work with. All right. But I don't think I like my creature that small on top of the muffins. So I think I like my creature as more of a kind of Godzilla creature, maybe in the background. But I'll figure it out, and we'll see some of the different options we have. And then how do we get it to match that environment? If it's nicely cleaned out, nicely sharp, nicely already internally colored, it's not going to be a lot of work next class to make it match. And then remember, next class you're also going to be picking your group midterm presentation topics with your group members. So an important class. All right, I am not going to save this, but that's what I will do with you all at the beginning of next class. And that's it. Thank you guys. Remember the deadlines for today? Question of the day number 2. And assignment 2. We're finishing up unit 5. Following that course outline.